Spinal wave, such a personal thing. I'm going to go through and show you my spinal wave. Hey guys, it's Fayon here, back with another video. I'm going to go through the side-to-side frontal plane spinal wave. Now, the most famous spinal wave, the back-to-front sagittal plane spinal wave, I think there's a lot of content out there, and it actually comes quite more naturally to people because you're more natural to flex and extend with the spine. But the side-to-side wave, a lot of this side flexion movement is actually very unfamiliar for people, especially to coordinate it through all the articulations of the spine. So I'm going to break it down for you today and give you a few tips and tricks on how to understand it, how to approach it, some things that have helped me and my students, and I hope they help you as well. We're going to get started. Let's go. Alright, let's take a look at the frontal plane spinal wave itself. This is one of the versions being led from the pelvis. You can see the pelvis leading the movement, swaying from left and right, and the rest of the spine following the action from the pelvis. This is the second version of the frontal plane wave, being led from the opposite direction from the head. You can see here how from the top of the head leads the movement and the rest of the spine follows, the exact opposite of the other wave being led from the pelvis. Side by side, they lead to the same action, but you can see how initiating the movement from either the head or the pelvis can result in a slightly different wave. The frontal plane means that the movement of the spine is just swaying from side to side. If you can imagine staring at yourself in a mirror, it means that you're not going towards or away from the mirror, or either rotating left or right to the mirror, but with your chest facing forwards at all times, you're waving like a seaweed in the ocean, going from side to side. So let's understand the movement that is happening at the pelvis. The hip actually hikes up and then drops down as it pushes from left to right. You can see by the reference points of my hands that my hand actually travels up and then in a circular motion travels down before then pushing across. This happens on both hips. You have to soften the knees to allow this motion to happen. As the hip hikes up, you have to straighten the leg, and as it comes down, you have to soften and bend your knee. This is quite a tricky motion to understand, as when beginning, the tendency is to perform a calf raise or to lift your foot off the ground to achieve the hip hike. This is not the movement, and in the wave, your feet remain fixed and firmly planted on the ground at all times. Here is a tool so that you can connect to your body and better understand the muscular contraction needed to initiate this hip hiking movement. From a passive hang, you want to tilt your pelvis so that you raise one side of your hip up whilst dropping the other side of the hip. The movement doesn't come from raising your knees up and down, it comes generated from the hip, although the knees move as a consequence of this in this hang. You should feel contractions deep within your sides, which is the QL muscle activating to initiate this movement. Understanding the tilting of the pelvis will really transform the side-to-side motion of your wave. So let's look at the movement of the ribs. A common tendency here will be to drive the movement from your shoulders and to shrug up as you sway from side to side. Let's look a little closely here. Shrugging the shoulders means that the spine is actually not moving and not involved, whereas a rib tilt means that the spine is flexing from side to side, closing the distance from the bottom of the ribs to the top of the pelvis. You can easily practice this by taking a seat. This locks the pelvis in position, and without shrugging your shoulders, you can then try to tilt your spine and your ribs from left to right. The side contraction for this will be coming from your obliques. Now let's look at the movement of the head. This one should be the easiest to understand. The head stays facing forward whilst it tilts from left to right downwards. However, when trying to coordinate the wave with other segments of the spine, it can be common to start facing and turning from left to right. Remember, all parts of the spine remain facing forwards when performing the motion. The final piece of the puzzle is what I call the side flop position. Next to a wall, you're going to flop to the side with your head tilting towards the wall and push your hip out away from the wall, and then reach over with one hand to the wall and feel the contraction and the lengthening of this side stretch. We are going to use this as a reference position. Alright, let's put this all together. We're going to use the hips, the ribs, the shoulders, and the head as positional points to guide us through the wave. What we're going to do here is, from standing, you're going to push your hip out to the side, ribs out to the side, shoulders, and then head, and then return back to the middle to standing. The pelvis, ribs, shoulders, head, and then side flop back to standing. So once again, pelvis, ribs, shoulders, head, side flop position, back to standing. Think of pushing out each of those points sequentially out to the left or the right, and then returning back to the middle. As you get more comfortable with the wave, you can start to try to piece the left motion with the right motion without returning back to the middle, so to keep on swaying from side to side. Try and piece together all the parts that we ran through before, starting with the pelvis, remembering to hike the hip up as it goes across to the other side, then dropping it down, then the rib tilts to start maximizing the side flexion of the spine, and then to relax the neck to allow the head to flop from side to side following the motion of the pelvis. Slowly over time, with practice, you'll be able to connect the dots, connect the segments, and smooth out the portions of the wave as you go from side to side. We can take the same approach with the head leading segmented wave, picking the points of the body, starting with the head, then the shoulders, ribs, pelvis, side flop, back to standing. Again, head, shoulders, ribs, pelvis, back to the middle to standing. This way we can break the wave into two components in an easier to understand manner, using the points of the body and the two reference positions, one being the side flop position and the other position being simply standing in the middle. Be aware that in this version of the wave, the tendency will be to shrug up your shoulders instead of tilting with your ribs like we have practiced before. Once you become comfortable with this motion, you can keep on leading with the head, not stopping in the middle. So from the side flop, leading with the head to the other side, and then tilting the head, the shoulders, the ribs, and the pelvis to keep on going from left to right. Remember, even with all these tips in mind, it takes time, effort, patience, and practice to start piecing together all the components into a smooth movement, into one that your body actually understands. A few other tools to help understand what you are actually doing is to record a video of yourself and watch it, or stand in front of a mirror and watch yourself as you sway from side to side. That way you can piece together what you're actually feeling with what is actually happening. That's a wrap for today, guys. I hope that was helpful for you to understand this new novel movement of moving and waving the spine from side to side. This is one of my favorite spinal waves because whenever I do it, I don't know what it is, it just opens up my body. All these different regions feel amazing, and I hope you guys experience this and feel amazing too. So give this a go, reach out to me in the comments if you have any questions. I'd love to help out. And if you want to get in touch with me, yes, other than the comments below, you can jump onto thepassivehang.com. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you really like this content as well. And it really helps me out if you share it and spread this to a friend who might want to enjoy this as well. All right, guys, well, I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.